What up, Pittsburgh Steel fans? Matty P, Shannon White, another little episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. Shannon, there's been a lot of talk this week about Justin Fields. You spoke about him at length with the big G. And what's the other G? I always have a mention blank. That's it. And you guys were talking about Fields. Everyone's talking about Fields. I've done an interview, a show on Fields this week as well. And, when I explored where Fields makes sense to go to, there are so many other teams he makes more sense to go to than the Steelers. If you had to make a move at quarterback, whether it's re-signing Mason, drafting a guy, re-signing another free agent, I think I've got a free agent that it's really, in an ideal world, I'd actually go after more than anyone at the moment, and I can't believe I feel that way. But is Fields the move that you're making? Is that the one move that you'd make out over any other move? Let's say you were the GM. We talked about in our previous segment. We talked about Weidl and Khan. If you were in their shoes, and you can only make one move, right? You can only make one move. Your checkmate move. What are you doing?
Well, as you mentioned, we talked about this on our Pump Your Brakes podcast. And Brother Tate went through and listed all the rumors of guys that might get drafted or free agents or trades. And what we thought. Did we like it, we love it, or we hate it? And, I was not happy with about any of the options. And different people were starting to say, well, who does Shannon want to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers? I'm old. I remember the dynasty, the Steel Curtain. I remember the dead years before Big Ben Roethlisberger was graciously drafted into our franchise. I don't want to go through those dry years again.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, finding a franchise quarterback is extremely difficult. Now, some people believe you can't win without one.
I disagree.
Well, if that's your philosophy, it's even worse. Because I believe if you put together a good enough roster, you can. But neither one's easy.
Yeah.
So, to find a franchise quarterback, you're going to have to be lucky. You're going to have to be smart. And you're going to have to think outside the box.
Yep.
So I'm looking at this draft class.
Yep.
And I don't think there's a franchise quarterback in it. I'm looking at what's coming out next year. I don't like it either.
Well, I actually like the potential of Jaden Daniels over Anthony Richardson. I will say that. I wouldn't sell the farm to get him. I wouldn't sell the farm to get him, but I think he's a better prospect than Richardson was.
I like Daniels. I don't like his size. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of little guys.
Yeah.
There ain't too many prototypical size quarterbacks. Mahomes ain't a monster, but he ain't tiny either.
No.
So then I look at what's going to be available, free agent or trade variety. So to get a quarterback that has franchise quarterback potential, now that's a big word. But can be special. The Steelers already have a rookie, a first-round quarterback on the roster at Kenny Pickett. So if I'm bringing in another guy, I want somebody with experience. And there was talk today about Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Well, if you're you're talking about over 40-some million a year. If you're close to being a championship team, you do what the Rams did. They went out and got Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
And they won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Now, that might set them back for a few years, but they went for it, right? Because winning the Super Bowl is the ultimate goal.
And it's funny you bring up that name because if the Steelers were close, I'm telling you, they could trade for Matt Stafford. LA are looking at what they do to move on from Matt Stafford. They will draft a quarterback in this draft, and they will nurse him for a year, and Matt Stafford won't be there next year.
Yeah, but the Steelers aren't close.
That's my point. Yeah.
So to me, I love watching Stafford because I watched Josh Allen and I think of being because of the size and the strength.
Yeah.
I watch Matthew Stafford because he's got that beautiful arm and can
Oh,
make
yeah.
every throw just like Ben.
Yep.
But we're not there. So Kirk Cousins doesn't make sense. So I'm looking at rosters and trade possibilities. And honestly, when you look at the first round quarterbacks selected through the years, they mostly don't make it.
No.
The vast majority are not franchise quarterbacks. Now, my definition and everybody else's definition of a franchise quarterback is different. And that for me, you got to win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
So there's very few, precious few. So the only guy that I see that I can say that you could come in and develop with a team and he has the potential to be special would be a Justin Fields. Now, here's the kicker. You might be able to get this guy for a second-round pick and a future, or you could do Deontay Johnson in a second-round pick, whatever. But I thought Tate had a great idea last night. Even if you went with the first to assure you get him, then you swap second-round picks.
Yeah, I didn't like that trade. That trade's not value.
But it moves up. You're getting a better early second-round pick.
But also my thing as well is
your center or your tackle, whichever you want worse, because the Steelers have got to improve.
There's no starting. To me, it's a massive gamble on starting tackle at sec. For me, what I would be doing is trading 2025 picks for Fields. Like I would do like a second in 2025, and I would do like a third, fourth, or Deontay this year. I would not be giving up my first two picks for Justin Fields this year. But that's my thing.
Swapping second round picks. You're not giving up your second round pick.
But to me, I don't want to give up my first
pick because.
But I don't want to give up my first round pick when I get a 5th-year option on a player, and I'm up for Powers Johnson or Fuaga or Guyton or a top quality corner that we're at a very expensive position. Like to gamble on Fields, that's just me. But I asked you your opinion, so
yeah. But here's the problem: it's all a gamble. That was my point. That all these first round quarterbacks, it's a gamble. It's a reach. Yeah. They're saying Caleb Williams could be the first quarterback taken. I don't like him. I would not take him in the first round.
I think it depends who picks number 1. If Washington trade up, that's going to be interesting. But I think when everyone goes to the combine and the pro days and they see Drake May I know he didn't have the college year he had last year, but they see Drake May and they look at his size and they look at his arm because he's got an arm and they look at like all the prototypical stuff. And if he bangs on 80-90% of the throws and he's looking fluid, depending on who's willing to trade up and grab him, there are teams that are picking, like even I look at like Tennessee, there are teams picking the top 10 that'll just go, that's the guy. They're just going to pick classic trades.
But that's the problem. You mentioned Tennessee. Drake May is Will Levis.
Yes.
They're the same dude.
Yeah, I know.
They're the same dude. If you've already got Will Levis, you don't want Drake May. If you've already got Kenny Pickett, you don't want Bo Nix.
I don't understand dude. I don't understand the Bo Nix to the Steelers thing. Yeah. I think that's
you got Penix, but Penix gets injured all the time.
But Penix is a more accurate Kenny Pickett without the mobility in my mind.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is there's no sure thing. So unless you're getting a guy that's a Matthew Stafford or a Kirk Cousins, but you're paying for that. You know that because you're already a championship team. Steelers ain't close. So you're trying to get a guy with potential that can grow in to being that franchise guy. Yeah. You already got Kenny Pickett. Leave him alone. You bring in Justin Fields. Let him compete. And I believe you have a better chance of one of them two guys being the answer than you do because you can't reach, again, for an older quarterback because you're not there yet. And any draft pick is going to be a gamble. And here's the problem, Matty. The Steelers have no plans on losing 10 games. 11 games. They're not going to pick high enough to have a chance at a guy, even if a guy, say that Sanders lights college football on fire next year, and he's going to be, the Steelers love him. They ain't going to get a chance to draft him unless they give up their future.
Well, so this is it, right? This is what
you don't have to give up that much to get Fields. And I'm telling you, he is as talented or more than anybody in this draft this year.
Oh, this year, yeah. I
think it makes sense.
But to me, I've got a question.
Think outside the box to get a guy that has that kind of potential. See, right now, to me, Kenny Pickett, I think his ceiling is kind of like a Kirk Cousins. That's what I would call his ceiling for him and Brock Purdy.
But my question is, like, in the era of the quarterback, and Ben is part of that era, but even then, top quarterbacks didn't command the percentage of the salary cap that they command now, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's on a whole nother scale.
Yeah.
The Steelers' philosophy on running the football, or at least defense, putting aside running the football, that has been the same for how many decades? 5? Where are we at now?
5, yeah.
Do we, like, if they, I know this is going to sound ridiculous and almost, like a heretic, considering, like, it means winning games. When you bring in Fields, Steeler fans and the Steeler franchise and the Rooneys have to realize that if that works, and I'm not saying I wouldn't hate it. I want to see the Steelers win games. I want to see them win Super Bowls.
Yeah.
But if that works over 2 years, you're paying that bloke the best part of $60 million a year. Are we ready? Like, are we ready to shift the entire team philosophy on that? I'm just being devil's advocate on that, because I agree with what your usual, what your overall philosophy is around. You don't need a franchise quarterback is someone that wins you Super Bowls, but you don't necessarily need the absolute best quarterback in the league to win Super Bowls, right? Like, Joey Burrow right now is not the best quarterback in the league, but if the Steelers had Joey Burrow, I think they would be in the Super Bowl straight away.
Well, last night, Tate said, well, I consider Joe Burrow a franchise quarterback. I said, what's he won?
But he hasn't won it, yeah.
Yeah, what's he won? I mean, how many guys, Joey Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts last year, Burrow's
better than all those guys.
Jalen Hurts everybody last year thought he was going to be the best quarterback in the NFC. And I mean, it doesn't matter unless you can win it all.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I don't think Fields can win it. I don't think Fields can win it all.
I honestly,
I wonder about Josh Allen.
Because Josh Allen, to me, Ben was a gunslinger.
Yeah.
But Josh Allen turns the ball over a lot. Yeah. Now, he scores a lot for him. But the thing is can he reel it in the biggest games? Lamar Jackson, he's incredible in the regular season.
Yeah.
But then he's not the same in the postseason.
Yeah.
And they've hooked their wagon to him. They had to rebuild everything to use Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
To make him what he is. So now he's forever tied to Harbaugh. And if they ever win, Harbaugh will be credited. He'll deserve credit. If they never, then he's the one that hitched his wagon to him.
Mm.
But I'm saying that so much of this is a gamble. And there are no guarantees. I can't guarantee you what will happen or what would work.
Yeah.
But I know this, let's say you're going to pay whoever, if you get you a franchise quarterback, you're going to be paying for a franchise quarterback.
Totally.
Now, Ben was never considered one of the top 3 quarterbacks. I thought he was, but the NFL didn't. But my thing is, he was a winner. That's what I care about.
Yeah.
He won in the big games. And he can't help it that the injuries happened or that his GM lost his mind and just let the defense fall apart.
Yeah.
That's why they couldn't win there towards the end. They just didn't have the defense.
Yeah.
And it was all about being a shiny new toy. But that didn't help the defense.
So one thing I would say is that I actually don't think there's and I got into this in 2 different comment threads on videos on the channel with people, and we all kind of, well, we came into different things, came to the conclusion, and I did, like whether it was explicitly stated in one of the threads and sort of inferred in the other thread, that really over the next 2 years, there's not really a good position for the Steelers to be in at all, because there's kind of no real long-term answer at quarterback, which is how I truly believe. I'm actually very high on Quinn Ewers. I know that sounds like I've got my orange goggles on from the Texas Longhorns. I think he's underrated. I think he will be very good in the NFL. I think whatever you do this year, the Steelers are not going to win it anyway. And I stick with my theme. I'm not moving from it no matter what anyone says. Fix the line first, and that means getting younger and cheaper. But I think if you prep that team, then you at least, my thing is, if you fix the line first, the O-line, and obviously I agree with you, they need a D-line guy too, which is why I love Braden Fisk. Trade back into the 3rd round and get Fisk. I love Braden Fisk at DT. But I honestly think that it's better to get the line ready, and then if someone does show up next year in the draft, or there's someone shows up in free agency, you can make the move and you've got the line to back it up. That to me is like the smartest thing the Steelers can do, because no one can sit here and tell me, as you said before, it's all a gamble, right?
Yes.
But there's one name.
I did want to say one thing. This segment, we're talking about the Fields.
I know it's about the Fields.
So what I'm saying is, my opinion.
Yeah.
And I want to strengthen the whole roster and then worry about quarterback.
Yeah.
But during that time, if an opportunity, and the Steelers feel very, convinced that they have found that guy that potentially could be, they have to do outside the box thinking to make a move to get that guy. So right now, what I'm seeing for the next 2 years, the only guy that makes any sense right now is Fields, because I don't see anybody else that I say can lead the Steelers potentially to the top and win a Super Bowl out of what's available as we know right now.
But I don't think, and my thing.
But I'm all for building the roster first.
Yeah, because my thing is, I don't think Fields can do it. I've got questions about him alone, but I don't think he can do it behind that O-line that we've got. That's my.
Yeah, but I said if they trade, they still can use the draft picks they have in the 2nd and 3rd round, depending on where you can get a guy like Frazier.
Frazier will go in the 2nd. Frazier
and you strengthen that line. I agree, because everything on Arthur Smith's scheme is predicated and dependent on a strong offensive line.
And if we had one more piece on the O-line, people are going to hate this, and he's too expensive anyway, right? I'm just saying, if you can make one move and you move people around and you restructure the contract, man, I would be so, in an ideal hypothetical world, I cannot believe I'm going to say this. I just cannot believe I'm going to do it. But like, I had to look into the stats. He had a great season this year with a crappy, like, destabilizing everywhere in terms of he came in at the last minute. Their scheme was average. Yes, he had some good players around him, but he didn't have a run game. And I think about the Arthur Smith offense. I mean, Baker Mayfield, I would just love to, because I don't see there anyone in the league that's not Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, any of these guys, like everyone else, the next 2 or 3 years, there's no long-term answer. There's no 10-year quarterback on the Steelers, right? But Cameron Hayward ain't playing until he's in his mid-40s. Minka Fitzpatrick's not going to be playing safety in the NFL at 37. And TJ Watt's not going to be playing there at 39. So I'm like, how do you win frickin' like as soon as possible with someone that can win it? I just look at what I see so far, and I would have, if I don't know, something intrigues me about the Baker Mayfield thing. It's not going to happen. It's too expensive. It doesn't fit because we are missing 1 or 2 more people on the O-line. I just think the enigma that he is, I don't know, there's something about it. And I think about gunslingers, and I think about, like, when I watch highlights of Terry Bradshaw throwing it everywhere, and I don't know, there's something about it. I like it. I don't know why. I just do. I can't explain it.
I've not talked about Baker since the projections have come out that he's going to get $40 million plus a year.
So draft dudes last night said they think it'll be more like it will be closer to 30 and it will be 40, but that's just their opinion.
Yeah, well, I think it will be near 40 or over. I think he really showed a lot last year. When he was drafted in the draft, I said I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. I said he'll never be a Steeler, all that. Then he got done dirty. The Browns did that guy dirty.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys would have fell apart and floated through the league. He's went out there and put on a strong performance wherever he's been, and he led the Buccaneers to the playoffs. But again, the money part is the concern.
I know. That's my thing. But if the money part wasn't there, that is the guy over Fields.
Yeah, if it was all equal, I would take Mayfield over Fields because Mayfield's proven. Mayfield has accomplished more and he's more proven. But I'm just saying that for this discussion, I didn't bring him in because the money just ain't it doesn't make sense right now. But yeah, I mean, I wish.
But imagine this, right?
I wish the Steelers were closer.
But if they were closer,
they'd have more options.
If you trade Deontay, you restructure, and we're gonna have to get into some void years, which I know you're not a fan of. I'm just saying, but you can do some simple restructures as well. Restructure a couple of guys like Watt, and there's a couple of the moves you make. Obviously, bye Allen Robinson, bye Patrick Peterson, and you draft, Jackson Powers-Johnson, right? Or you draft Frazier in the second round. You get one of the top tackles, like let's say it's Guyton or the guy out of Arizona, Morgan, or it's Fuaga, who I saw.
I like Fuaga a lot.
I like Fuaga as well, and I think he can play anywhere, guard, tackle, both sides. You get those two guys, you make the restructures happen, you move Deontay Johnson on to save yourself $10 million. You already saved yourself $8 million with a core of 4, and you've saved yourself a couple million there with Trubisky. And you go out and get Baker on a 3. Because remember, people are saying the draft's not good next year. You get Baker on a 3-year deal, backloaded. Yeah. So Cam Hayward is out of the contract discussion then. There's even Highsmith's on the back end of his deal. I'm just and so in the first year, he might make 20 or 30, or it's all the guaranteed money up front. He's got a low hit this year, and there's 2 more years on the deal, and you void it. And also, because the salary cap goes up, I've talked about this before, void years are smart if you owe a couple of pieces away because of the fact that the salary cap goes up. So if or whatever your money is today, that money stays there. It doesn't inflate at the same way the salary cap goes. So it's actually cheaper, right? When you backload the contracts in the NFL. I'm just if you really wanted to win now, you make the move for Baker now, because he's got youth on his side compared to Cousins. He's a proven performer. He's got pedigree, was the first round pick taken. Yep. He's proven that he can adapt to different offenses. And he has never had the same offensive coordinator year in, year out. He's never had the run game, really, even at the Browns, it was all over the place. That's why they went and got Chubb. With Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren in an Arthur Smith offense, and Baker uses his tight ends. He's used to having a big wide receiver and a guy like Mike Evans. I mean, if you really want to compete for a Super Bowl this year and next year, Baker Mayfield is arguably, I'm not going to say the only option, because obviously everything's hypothetical, but it's actually the smartest option here, because you don't have to give up your draft picks, and you don't have to sell the farm for him. You've just got to find a way to financially and fiscally do it. And with Omar Khan at GM, I trust that more than any time I would have if Colbert made that move.
Well, Khan, will trade back in to Rams.
Yes.
And he'll trade a guy and then a pick this year and then get it back next year. So something Colbert wouldn't do. He didn't massage the draft.
Yeah.
We know that Khan, and obviously already has. So I agree totally. I also agree with what you're saying about Baker Mayfield. Now, I want you to realize when I was talking about Fields, it's the same thing I told Tate last night, okay? That's thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Everything you said, yes, it goes against Steelers' norm, how they normally operate. But that's what's going to have to happen.
But that's why I wanted to say it, because
you're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Think outside the box to put this puzzle together. And I'm all for that. That's the kind of thinking I want to see the Steelers do. Because you know what's going to happen if they don't? 10-7, 9-8, never had a losing season, and it's just like a flat line when somebody's dead. It's just a flat line because nothing changes. I want outside the box thinking.
But that's why I wanted to come to you
because
with this
there's
solution.
no risk, no reward.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I like what you were coming from because you were thinking about here's how to make it happen. And that was all. It wasn't crazy talk. You actually thinking of realistic ways, but that's thinking outside the box and outside the Steelers' norm. And Tate did it, and you just did it, and I like both of them.
Well, and my thing with this too, and I wanted to come to you. When I heard you yesterday, when I heard you pump the brakes, I'm like, I'm coming to you with a solution. Like no one's talking about. But you still fix the line. So even if Baker doesn't work out, you've still fixed the line. You front-loaded the contract with all the guarantees. So actually, if it doesn't work in the first year, you can cut him and cut your losses. Or you can keep him around for an extra year. Kenny Pickett can still actually develop, right? Because his fifth-year option, like he'll be on his fifth-year option. You can keep him as your backup. Like, I'm not saying that this is what for fans listening and listeners. Like, I'm not saying that the Steelers have to make this move. I'm saying if you actually wanted to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, you make this move.
Hey, no risk it, no biscuit. You change nothing, nothing changes. There has to be forward thinking and realizing that nothing, it's all fluid. Nothing's rigid and set in stone. Colbert acted like, well, this is where we're picking, and there's nothing we can do about it. Khan and Waddle's already showed the willingness to play around with this. Sometimes it's a gamble. Sometimes it ain't going to work. But guess what? You're trying to get there. All the Steelers are trying right now is the flat line. Hey, we don't want that. We're tired of that. Rudy says, I'm tired of this. So prove it. Let's see something.
Yeah. Well, that's going to wrap up this quick segment of the Steelers Global Perspective. Got one more coming for you over the weekend. Steelers.